Assalamu alaikum. I'm very honored and humbled to be here with all of you today. And for those of you who do know me, and Sister Rida was pretty clear about this, we have work to do. And I don't feel, and I'm sure you've been quite inspired. I know this is a very spiritually rooted conference. I don't feel really inspiring. I just feel like there's some hard conversations that we need to have as a community. And I want to have this conversation here with all of you today. Sisters and brothers, we have to win. There is no choice that we have as a community but for us as Muslim Americans to build power in this country, to build influence in this country, and to protect our beloved communities. You know, a lot of people were pretty outraged last November when the United States elected a fascist, racist, sexist, misogynist into the White House. I was outraged too, but I was actually outraged for another reason. I was outraged at our community for their outrage. And the reason why I was so outraged at our community is because it was as if Donald Trump introduced racism to us, or misogyny to us, or sexism, or Islamophobia to us. Sisters and brothers, where have Muslims been the last 17 years in a post 9/11 America when we have seen over 1 million Iraqis killed in an unjust war on your taxpayer dollars? The Patriot Act, unwarranted surveillance of Muslim communities across this country, the increase in hate crimes against our sisters and our masajids across this country. Sisters and brothers, I didn't need Donald Trump to remind me of all of that. He was just a symptom of long-standing diseases in these United States of America. But since our community wants to have a conversation about Donald Trump, since we are a bit more aware and awake in light of a Donald Trump administration, let's just talk about what has happened under this administration just in the past 15 months. We have Muslim ban 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we have a full-fledged Muslim ban. I just read a story of a brother from Yemen who took his own life because he could not figure out how to live in a world where he is unable to leave the United States of America, and this country denied his children visas to come here. He could not live in a world without his children. This is the human impact of what a Muslim ban has on our communities when our families are not worthy of being reunited. We live in a country where our president has decided to strip children from their mothers on the US border, oftentimes from people who can trace their lineage back as indigenous to this land, because we have to remember our history. We crossed, right, the Mexican border, not the other way around. The stripping of 23 million Americans of their health care. And as Muslim Americans, we live in a country where people will die or have died because they don't have access to health care. Ending DACA, 800,000 young people in this country who are now at risk of deportation, and by extension, 11 million of their family members. Those children who had DACA, many of whom are Muslim, were actually safer before they had DACA, because now we have a fascist administration who has access to all of their information. I can keep going on, sisters and brothers, about this administration. A US-backed Saudi war against Yemen. This administration sold the largest arms deal in US history to Saudi Arabia that is now killing innocent and poor Yemenis who are our sisters and brothers, and we are silent as a country and silent as a community. The threats of attacks on Iran, and we know there's been long-standing attacks on Iran, including over decade-long sanctions on Iran, and generally speaking, silence from our community. Black people being killed at the hands of law enforcement. Exponential gun violence killing dozens of people per day on our watch in this country. Sisters and brothers, the time for us to wake up is now. And we have to have a very deep, reflective conversation in our community. when we have an administration that is raining havoc on our community, but we're not actually understanding who this government is. This is a government that is made up of people that people like us have been fighting against for the past 17 years. Stephen Miller was not new to me. Chris Kobach was not new to me. Steve Bannon was not new to our community. Pamela Geller was not new to our community. Bridget Gabriel from Act for America, who has a free pass to the White House, is not new to me. So the people that people told us don't worry about the Islamophobes, they're marginalized in this country. Guess what? They are the mainstream and have access to the highest office of this land. The very people that we said ignore them, let's not pay attention to them, are now drafting legislations targeting our communities in the White House. But our community, and I've been to many masajid around the country, both Shia, Sunni, all kinds of Muslim communities. You know what people say to me? They say, Sister Linda, can you come to the masjid and talk about, women's empowerment? Because, in this masjid, we don't do politics. We're not political. And I'm going to say this to all of you here today. If you woke up this morning and you are breathing and you are Muslim, you are political, sisters and brothers. You have no choice but to be political in a country that has politicized you and politicized your religion. You have no choice as a Muslim to say, I want to be involved or engaged. Because you know what the difference between us and many other people is? We have to answer to Allah. And one day God's going to ask you, where were you when these injustices were being committed? What did you do to defend your deen in the United States of America? What did you do to defend your beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him? What did you do and where were you? So your responsibility and obligations are not just here in this life or just to our Muslim sisters and brothers or just to our physical institutions. Your responsibility is much greater than that, sisters and brothers. Now, one thing that we do in the Muslim community, I'm just going to put it out there, because Sister Linda has a whole lot of critics. They go all the way from the very, very far right to all the way from the very far left, and everybody in between. And Sister Linda doesn't care about the critics, because I don't work for the critics. I work for Allah. And when I go to bed at night and I lay my head down to sleep, I want to know that I did the right thing and I said the right thing and I stood in the right place. I don't care what my fellow Muslim sisters and brothers care about what I do. I care about what Allah thinks about what I do. So people in the Muslim community, we have a lot of debates that are really irrelevant. And we spend a lot of time doing a lot of talking. And what I love about Islam and the reason why I am an activist is not despite or in spite of being a Muslim. It is because I am a Muslim. This is why I do what I do. And when I think about Islam and people will say, Islam is a religion of peace. Of course Islam is a religion of peace. I believe wholeheartedly that all religions are religions of peace. But what is more important to me, and what I am so moved by amongst my Shia Muslim sisters and brothers, is that Islam is a religion that is rooted in justice. You can't have peace, sisters and brothers, without justice. It is a false peace for us to think that we can go and claim that Islam is a religion of peace if we are not Muslims working towards a just society for all people. It just doesn't work, sisters and brothers, and it is inaccurate and it is false. We also have to realize that the debates that we're having are also rooted in a false dichotomy. So for example, and I am here in Michigan and I've been here for a few days and I'm going to be here for the next 10 days. I'm here in Michigan because I'm working on 2 political campaigns. Because I believe in the potential of Muslims to build political power. And I'm knocking on door after door after door of Muslims. And I had Muslims trying to have these types of debates with me. Sister Linda, I like this candidate, but I want to talk to you about abortion. Sisters and brothers, this is the question that you need to ask yourself. This is not about anybody asking you as a Muslim to give up anything or any personal belief that you have as a Muslim. That's not the conversation that we're trying to have. No one in our community is trying to force you into believing in something that you may not believe in. That's not the point here. The question in politics is, what kind of control do you want the government to have? Are you ready as a Muslim to give up control of a woman's body to the government? Look what happened in a place like France. So while we have people and Islamophobes in this country talking to us about how women in Iran are forced to wear hijab, and I don't believe that anybody and any government should be forcing women to wear anything, and that hijab is a choice and a blessing from Allah that women choose. Let's look at a place like a democracy like France. France says that you are not allowed to wear hijab and go to a public university. France says that you can't have a public sector job in France if you wear hijab. So women have to choose their socioeconomic conditions, or to feed their families, or choose their faith, or choose their faith over their education, or choose education over faith. Why would we as Muslims trust a government like this one that is made up of over 70% white men who do not represent our community? Why would you give them access to your body? No one's asking you to change your views. It's about whether or not government gets to control what you decide to do. And everyone is entitled to hold their own personal and religious views, but government should not be involved in your personal religious beliefs on anything. That's my position, sisters and brothers. And we have to be very careful about people in our community that try to divide and conquer us. One of the things that I have learned from Islamophobes, and I know you think I'm crazy because you're like, Linda, I don't understand what you would learn from Islamophobes. When Islamophobes attack our communities, when they attack our masajid, when they attack Muslim sisters wearing hijab, do you think, sisters and brothers, that Islamophobes are intelligent enough to say, let me figure out if the masjid that I'm about to vandalize or burn down is Shia or Sunni? I want to find out where this imam was schooled, or what madhab this imam follows. Or when they attack a Muslim sister, do you think that they tap her on the shoulder and say, excuse me, are you from Bangladesh or Pakistan? Excuse me, are you from Yemen or are you from Egypt? They don't care, sisters and brothers. The Islamophobes don't care where you are from or what kind of Muslim you are. So I always say to people in the Muslim community, if the Islamophobes are treating us like we are one community, why are we not acting like we are one community? Sisters and brothers, we are one community. And our power and our unity is going to be our protection and progress in these United States of America. And I say to people all the time, sitting back at home and saying, this is bad and this is bad and this is not good and it's not enough. Or believing in your heart that something is not right is not enough. And we know that from a hadith that we have, that actually standing up against something in your heart is the weakest form of faith. My question to the Muslim community is, what are you doing? What are you practically doing? Our deen, sisters and brothers, is a very, very practical faith. We say, trust in Allah, but what? Trust in Allah and tie your camels. Sisters and brothers, we have dozens of camels out here that need to be tied. And I'm not going to lie to you, I have only 2 hands. We don't have enough Muslims who are out here tying our camels across this country. We need every single person in this room to find a role to play. Now, people say, Sister Linda, I don't know. Do you think something really bad can happen to Muslims in this country? First of all, really bad things have already happened to us. I don't know what else has to happen for us to believe that bad things happen. But I also want to remind you, one of the things that people, particularly Islamophobes and white supremacists and the alt-right don't like about me, is I'm rooted in reality. Sisters and brothers, God bless America. It gave many of our immigrant parents the opportunity to come here and to get opportunities that we would not have otherwise got in the home countries that we came from. And I do not take for granted that my Palestinian immigrant parents who came here from living under military occupation and made the decision to come to the United States so that I could be born here and I could stand on a stage here and I could work in politics and I could organize and I can speak truth to power. I don't take that for granted. I am grateful. But I also know that my parents chose to come to a country that also has a very dark history. This land that you are on today was founded on the extermination of indigenous people in this country. This land was founded on the enslavement of black Africans, 25 to 30% of whom were Muslims. This country also deported 2 million Mexicans back in the 1930s in Operation Wetback. So when they say, can they deport millions of people at once? They absolutely can, because they did it a very long time ago when they didn't have the same resources and technology that they have now. We are a country that when they said Muslim ban, people said, how can they ban a whole group of people from coming to this country, Sister Linda? Nobody can do that. Yes, they can, because they passed a piece of federal legislation in this country called the Chinese Exclusion Act. And if they could ban the Chinese, they can ban you too. This is a country that also interned Japanese Americans. Sisters and brothers, I'm going to take you back and take you forward very quickly. When this country decided to round up Japanese Americans and put them on concentration camps on this US soil, you know what they said about the Japanese? It wasn't a one-day affair. It was years of propaganda against Japanese Americans. You know what they said about the Japanese? They said the Japanese were not to be trusted. That the Japanese were incapable of being loyal to these United States of America. That the Japanese had a secret agenda, that they were spies, that they were just not to be trusted. They were the enemies within. Fast forward 76 years in 2018, who are they saying that about now? Sisters and brothers, you would think they picked up the same playbook and are reading off the same talking points, except they took out Japanese and put in the Muslims. So I don't need nothing horrible to happen to our people for me to stand up. I'm going to stand up for my people right now. I am going to prevent atrocities from happening to my people, to people of color, to marginalized people in this country, because that is what my faith tells me to do. And what I say to people all the time is, the difference between us and Islamophobes or people who don't align with our principles and values is this. I'm not afraid of Islamophobes. What's the worst that can happen, sisters and brothers? If we as Muslims are true Muslims, the only fear that you have in your hearts is of Allah and Allah alone. Because you know who got my back? I don't need Muslims to have my back. I don't need my allies to have my back. I don't need the government to have my back. Allah has my back. And if you believe that God got your back, then you should have no fear in your hearts, and you should be proudly and unapologetically standing up for ourselves, for our communities, for all marginalized people, and for our beloved deen and our right to practice our religion freely in these United States of America. So I need you to do a couple of things. Number one, electoral politics is not going to liberate Muslims or anybody in this country. It is a short-term strategy for us to stop the hemorrhaging in our communities. These policies that are being passed, we need people elected in office that are from our communities, that align with our communities. No politician's perfect. I don't put my money on politicians 100%. But I do know that we need some people that are better than the ones that we have right now who have not done anything for our communities. I need you to register to vote. I need you to take your mother, your grandmother, your child to the polls when it's time to vote. In a place like Michigan, and let's use Michigan as an example, voter turnout is like about 10%. We have 116,000 Muslim Democratic voters in the state. The bottom line is Muslims don't go to the polls. And I got into a point in my life is that if you don't go to the polls, you don't get to complain about who gets elected to office. You get to sit down and be quiet while the rest of us do the work. If you want to have and be part of the conversation, be part of the work, and the least that you can do is go to the polls while Muslims across the world are standing up against snipers, sisters and brothers, willing to die for the right to a free election, and you are here in these United States of America, and you freely go into a poll, and nobody threatens your life, and you still don't go? Shame, shame, shame on Muslims who don't engage in politics in these United States of America. And I'll end by saying this. People have said about me, Sister Linda's radical. She's too much. Sisters and brothers, first of all, let me take back the word radical for a second. Look it up in the dictionary. Radical means to get to the root of the problem. It's no more band-aids. Get to the root of the problem. And let's talk about my views. Sisters and brothers, tell me what's so radical, and let's use the definition of the opposition, because that's the definitions Muslims love to use. They love to take definitions from the opposition and apply them to our community. Let's use their definition. What's so radical about believing that everybody deserves access to health care? What's so radical about believing that black people shouldn't be killed at the hands of law enforcement? What's so radical about believing that immigrants who have come to this country deserve to live here with dignity and respect? What's so radical about believing that everybody should have a $15 minimum wage so that people don't have to work 4 and 5 jobs to support their families? Sisters and brothers, this is the things that I stand for are Islamic principles. Environmental justice, social justice, racial justice, economic justice, workers' rights, immigrant rights. These are fundamental to who we are as American Muslims. We believe that Allah created all people, and that Allah loves all people, and that Allah is the most forgiving. If Allah is the most loving and the most forgiving, who do you get to be as a Muslim and not forgive people and judge people and cast people out from parts of our community? That is not your job as a Muslim. Your job as a Muslim is to be a good Muslim and to treat people with dignity and respect and to make sure that your neighbors are fed and that everybody around us is treated with the same dignity and respect that you want to be treated with. That's what I believe a true Muslim should and always should be. And I'll end by saying this. They say it's not our time. The Muslim community has more work to do. Who do you think you are? Sisters and brothers, let me give you one last antidote and fact. Islam has been on the shores of these United States of America before it was called the United States of America. It has been our time. In fact, we are the ones that are late to our time. Gula said this when he came up here earlier. Sisters and brothers, this nation was built on the backs of black people and immigrant people. And we have contributed enough for this nation. We have given and paid our debt to this nation. It is time for this nation to pay us back for what we have contributed. And that requires us to have representation. And UMAA is a nonprofit organization and does not endorse political candidates. But Linda Sarsour endorses political candidates. In the state of Michigan, if you are from here or know people who are here, you only have one choice for governorship in the state, and that is Dr. Abdurrahman As-Sayyid. And in fact, for me, it is a crime as a Muslim American when you have a moment and a chance to make history in these United States of America at a time when an administration is telling you that you don't belong here. Imagine, sisters and brothers, if our message to this administration is not only do we belong here, but we're also taking a governorship for you and making history in these United States of America and putting in the first Muslim governor. That's the kind of messaging that I want to hear from the Muslim community. So I appreciate you all if you are from here. I hope that we get to see you today at 4 o'clock at the Dearborn Civic Center, which is literally like down the street from here, where Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, who's from the great state of New York and the great city of New York that I am from, is going to be at. Abdurrahman As-Sayyid, Sister Rashida Tlaib, Sister Fairuz Saad, Abdullah Hamoud, Brother Abraham Ayash from the Yemeni American community. Sisters and brothers, there is a movement from your community that is here building power. I want you to be a part of it. I want you to be inspired. And I promise you that I will continue to defend you, whether you like it or not. I am going to continue to defend your right and the rights of your children to be unapologetic Muslims. And I myself will always be an unapologetic Muslim and an unapologetic Palestinian American in these United States of America. Assalamu alaikum.